What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB playoffs Wednesday, October 14th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's MLB slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, MLB playoffs. Let's take a look at this 2-game main slate. At the pitcher position, I like Julio Urias with a small pitching advantage here over the Atlanta Braves. Julio Urias is giving up a .596 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 6 righties here tonight. Not a big sample size versus the Braves. They're 0 for 8, but that sample size is too small. And he's $8,600 FanDuel salary and $800 less on DraftKings. He has an ERA of 3.27. His record is 3-0 on the season, pitching an average of 80 pitches per game, averaging 25 fantasy points per game. He scored 30, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Julio Urias here versus the Atlanta Braves. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher position. So I like Will Smith with a small batting advantage versus Kyle Wright. Will Smith bats 25% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a 1.024 OPS versus righties. And Kyle Wright is giving up a .777 OPS versus righties. Will Smith is $2,900 FanDuel salary and $1,900 more on DraftKings. He's averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He's projected at 14.3 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Will Smith here versus Kyle Wright. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Jose Altuve with an 11% batting advantage over Tyler Glasnow. Jose Altuve is batting a .761 OPS versus righties, and Tyler Glasnow throws his worst ball versus righty batters, 13% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .663 OPS versus righties. Altuve is 2 for 7 with a .286 batting average and a 1.089 OPS versus Glasnow. One of those 2 hits is for a home run. He's $3,500 FanDuel salary and $1,100 more on DraftKings. He's averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season, and he scored 25, 6, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, projected at 10.6 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Jose Altuve here versus Tyler Glasnow. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Justin Turner batting against Kyle Wright. Justin Turner bats a little bit better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .872 OPS versus righties. And Kyle Wright is giving up a .777 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus right yet, and Turner is $3,000 FanDuel salary and $2,100 more on DraftKings. So I like that FanDuel price. He's averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season, projected at 14 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Justin Turner here versus Kyle Wright.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. So I like this Dodgers stack here versus Kyle Wright. So I like Corey Seager with a 41% batting advantage over Kyle Wright. Corey Seager is batting 18% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .934 OPS versus righties. And Kyle Wright throws his worst ball by far to lefty batters. 23% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.010 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus right yet, and Seager is $3,900 FanDuel salary and $1,300 more on DraftKings. He's averaging 13 fantasy points per game on the season, and he scored 41, 3, and 34 fantasy points in the last 3 games, projected at 14.8 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Corey Seager here versus Kyle Wright. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I'm going to give you a couple picks here. So just to add to this stack, if you have the salary, I like Cody Bellinger with a 37% batting advantage over Kyle Wright. Cody Bellinger is batting 14% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .958 OPS versus righties. And we know Kyle Wright throws his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a 1.010 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus right yet, and Bellinger is $4,000 FanDuel salary and $900 more on DraftKings. Averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season, he scored 13, 0, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games, projected at 13.4 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Cody Bellinger and this Dodgers stack here versus Kyle Wright. Okay, now a low salary batter to add to your stack. I think this play makes a lot of sense to open up your salary for the rest of your lineup. I like Jock Peterson with a 46% batting advantage here over Kyle Wright. Jock Peterson bats 23% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .799 OPS versus righties. And Kyle Wright, we know, throws his worst ball versus lefty batters. There's no at-bats versus right yet. And Peterson is only $2,500 FanDuel salary and $1,000 more on DraftKings. He's averaging 7 fantasy points per game on the season, projected at 13.4 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Jock Peterson and this Dodgers stack here versus Kyle Wright.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this MLB slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.